Hey everyone, so in this video I'm going to be going over this chance crate offer, which is about $4 Canadian, or I think it's about like $2 or $3 American. Now this limited time offer actually is really good. On a chance crate like this, you're expecting to see, some okay items and some really good items, as per usual, and you're also usually expecting bad odds. Now, this box, 10k coins, S-Class Mercer, some Benedicts, some Basils, Varnish, Grease, Platinum mods, as well as Gold mods. So you do have a very small chance at getting the coins, but a 10% chance at Mercer is pretty good, and even the 10 Benedicts, I think that's a pretty good deal for trainers, because usually trainers are a bit more expensive. So you do have some decent options here, like even the Basils, 20 Basils, a Varnish, which is expensive, two Greases, a Platinum mod, which, could go either way. You can get some good ones and you can get some bad ones. Some Gold mods, which, again, hit or miss. There's a lot of RNG in this type of box, but for some players, that 10% chance of getting an S-Class Mercer is definitely worth it, especially if you're just starting out in the game. Or I know some people are now considering getting a second Mercer so that they can upgrade his active skill so that he can recover from bleed, burn, and maim on the first turn, as well as give elusive to self. Now, I just want to bring to people's attention that even though you can max out his active skill, he will use it every time on the first turn. And I know some people are thinking, well, this is perfect against Mr. Liu on attack, but not entirely. Now, there's some things to consider with a toon like Mercer, because we have to remember that AI works a very specific way, where it will always use the active skill as soon as it's ready if it doesn't have its rush available and if it's not, taunted, confused, stunned, and so on. I even remember when Mercer first came out, he was a toon that I desperately wanted, and I actually did I think 140 pulls for him based off of coins that I earned with Tapjoy, for example. And it still took me a while longer to actually get him as an S-Class. I ended up getting the 1 5-star guaranteed one, and then I also pulled another 5-star, I think. So I was on my way, but I was just short on cards and stuff. But Mercer, very good toon. Less effective now because of all these stun resistances, and I mean like Axel as one example where it's 100% immunity, and there's one other toon that is slipping from my brain right now that also has that. With Mercer, I do like his weapon. You can kind of go either way. You can go more offensive or defensive with it. I like that it's a great chance to stun, meaning it's about 50%. But keep in mind that that becomes like 0 if a toon is immune to stun. So there's a lot of positives with Mercer. I still use him on attack versus other Mercer defensive teams just because I don't have a toon like Axel that directly counters Mercer. So I think that there's a lot of ways that people could really use a character like Mercer, and it's kind of nice. A 10% chance at getting an S-Class for $2 or $3 is a really good deal. With the emergence of a character, Mr. Liu, a lot of players have been considering getting a second S-Class Mercer just because of his active skill, and actually leveling up and maxing out the active skill. A lot of players have left the active skill at 1 for 8, which is something that I personally have done because I don't want my Mercer using this active skill and giving himself elusive and recovering from bleed, burn, and maim on the first turn. But with Mr. Liu, some people are running 5 of them on attack, which means it's 5 times 1,500 bleed damage that's applied to everyone on your defensive team. That's a total of 7,500 bleed damage applied on the first turn, and it lasts over 3 turns duration. Now, you might think, oh, this is a great strategy. I'm just going to use Mercer and max out his active skill, and that way I will have 0 problems with Mr. Liu on attack. But the sad reality of it is that even maxing out Mercer's active skill doesn't really help your team, because Mercer will always use this active skill on the first turn if it's maxed out, irregardless of if your team is bleeding or not. It's prioritizing the elusive ability over recovering penalties. This means that if the enemy has, say, 5 Mr. Lius on attack or 4 Mr. Lius and a Carrie-Anne lead, or 4 Mr. Lius and an Angel lead. They could just defend on the first turn, so swiping to the right, waiting out Mercer using his active skill, and then bleeding everyone on the opponent's team. Now, Mr. Liu on attack, I think, is one of the best characters to use if you have multiple. Like, this is just an example of how devastating he actually is. He's cameling himself, he's healing himself, he's applying a huge amount of bleed to the enemy, and no matter how much the enemy really heals, if they don't recover from the bleed, they're dying out very, very quickly. It's just an auto win after auto win after auto win. And that's one of the reasons why I'm not a huge fan of this character. Like, you're using all of the same character and you're nearly unstoppable. Like, I've changed some of their weapons and given them absolute defense, for example. That way they're not giving away AP, because the enemy, if they can't disarm or if they can't attack and successfully hit my character, well, they're not gaining any AP, which is one reason why a tune like Carrie-Anne is a decent lead, because she provides elusive at the very beginning. I think one of the other tough parts with having this many Mr. Lius is that even if you have a bleed resist mod, some of these bleeds are going to stick, and 1,500 bleed is an exorbitant amount. It just becomes so difficult to successfully apply it. Like right now, this is a good example. Mercer recovers from the initial bleed, but I'm still able to use my other 4 Mr. Lius on the second turn and apply 6,000 bleed damage to everyone. And it's kind of just a waiting game. Sure, I'm getting attacked and stuff, but for some of these tanky teams, it's just breezing through it because of how high the bleed damage can be stacked and how long the turn duration of it is. It's definitely getting a lot more difficult in the game to defend. It's always been difficult to defend, but now more than ever, it just seems like the next character is always better than the last. And it's not a direct counter to a tune that's been just very overpowered in the game, for example, but it's just stronger. It has better stats, it has better abilities, and it's like it's playing its own trump card at different times. Overall, I don't foresee Mercer with a maxed out active skill as a counter to Mr. Liu, maybe a turn delay, but otherwise, like, Mercer doesn't give an HP or defensive lead buff, so it's not really helping against the bleed at all. Overall, I just think that Mr. Liu is too powerful. I do think the Mercer deal is a really good deal, especially if you don't have him, or if you did max out his active skill, it might be nice to have a second one with an unmaxed active skill.